That was a good windup and a good start to move into this. To begin with, I'd really love if everyone in the chat, I've kind of been able to jump in and out of some sessions, not as many as I would like, but if everyone in the chat could just put in your location, your role, whatever you may call yourself, and why you're here. I mean, of all the things that you could be doing, I'm really curious why, and I love to give us some physical locations inside of this digital event just to kind of connect all those dots. And what I'll say too is that make sure to stick around, because at the end, I'm going to be giving everyone a special treat. So there's going to be a slide that you can grab at the end here of this presentation, and a little goodie, a little thank you to everyone. Cool. Dave in Brooklyn, and Anna in Paris. All right, wonderful. Gemma, UK. Great. I'm looking forward to see if you find anyone that lives in a place where you want to take a vacation, or that you might find a neighbor here on the chat, then that's a cool thing to do. All right, Sydney, Kelvin, welcome. Anna Marie in Amsterdam. I missed the fries there. They're the best that I've ever had. And with that being said, let's just go ahead and move in. I want to make sure that we have time for a bunch of different stuff, and want to make sure that we can lean into these difficult conversations and unblock creativity. Everyone sees the slide all right? Thumbs up, looking good? Okay, perfect. So leaders and teams that I've been working with have told me that when their teams are consistently taking good risk, they have a huge advantage, because their organization is able to move faster, shift, and innovate more than their competitors. And these leaders have determined that facilitation and holding space for difficult conversations is at the core of giving people confidence in taking those intellectual risks in the first place. So what I'm going to share with you today might not be what you expected. It's not going to be your standard presentation. And I'd like for you to take a risk by keeping an open mind and just taking the pieces that you find valuable. You might be asking, what does risk have to do with creativity? So what is creativity? We often think of artists. So imagine for a moment Picasso. Before anyone knew him, no one valued his work, and one day he's painting and he decides to make a brand new brushstroke. And that brushstroke that he never took before, that's a risk, right? And that's why I've been on a mission to let you know that creativity isn't perfect. It's that willingness to consider and test ideas outside of the boundaries of what's known and move into the unknown. And that's where creativity is born. It's also the ability to acknowledge that we can be wrong, and that something that we might have built or believed in or supported has to break, has to change. So creativity needs risk, and you can't have creativity if people aren't willing to put themselves out there. A study in 2017 found that the most creative groups are groups that take social risk. That is, speaking up even when other people might disagree. That's why I've been on a mission, and I believe that dialogue should be a habit and not just an intervention. Not just when things get bad. I think it should be something we practice, that we become good at, and that we can have muscles in. So I'm going to say a statement, and in the chat, I would just like for you to type yes if it's true for you. All right? So type yes if you have a leader that uses facilitation to get the best ideas in the room, not just someone who tells you what's going on, but actually utilizes facilitation to bring out the intelligence in the room. Okay. All right, that's more no's than I thought. Like, there's some no's that just jumped in that were quick. I sorry if I hit a nerve, but some of you have experienced the collaborative approach where you're valued. So I'm happy to hear that. Now type yes if you've ever shared an idea that got shot down. Type yes if you've ever shared an idea that got shot down. Okay, there's one yes, right? Which means that it must happen more often than we'd like. So I see a few. I appreciate you. That must be hard, especially if there's no explanation around it, right? Sometimes there's just a no. Next one, type yes if you've experienced a discussion that went poorly. Type yes if you've experienced a discussion that went poorly. Okay, that's the fastest yeses so far. So with all those yeses though, I'm thinking of all those lost ideas and tension those folks are feeling in those meetings. So let's talk about a way to change that. My name is Hassan Ghiassi. I'm the founder of the Dialogic Approach, and I help leaders and teams thrive. And I do this by coaching executives and running programs with teams. Individuals that I work with really know that on the other side of any challenge is opportunity. And I'm also a facilitator. I'm very proud to see that lots more people are calling themselves facilitators nowadays. When I started my journey back 16 years ago, it wasn't as common of a word that you'd hear. So 16 years ago, I was crazy enough that every single week I decided to start facilitating discussions each and every week. So I've done this for 16 years. So that 10,000 number that you heard, 10,000 people, I just stopped counting after some point in time. And out of all those experiences, there's really one key moment that changed everything for me. At a very young age, with very little authority and in all sorts of situations, it gave me the ability to allow individuals to take risk, practice intellectual creativity, and come through difficult dialogues as friends. It shifted how I approach groups, how I approach questions, and how I approach holding space. So I'm going to tell you about my journey, and I hope that there's something inside of that that will help you on yours wherever you might be. And it starts when I had a lot less gray hair, and I was a young kid going to university in North Carolina. So as an 18-year-old, I raised my hand to volunteer to be put into a group of students who were leading peer discussions with other students. And the professors in charge didn't give us much parameters. They just kind of told us, have people talk, and they threw us together. They said that the process itself would be helpful. I don't know, something, right? But I was jazzed about it. I was into it. So each week, about 100 students would come to this center on campus. We'd break into groups of 10 to 15. And each week I was learning something new. One of the first challenges that I had was that when you put students in a room with no rules, no grades, they didn't know what to do. They were scared if they took a risk and spoke up, they'd be punished if what they said was wrong. And that's what we've learned in the classroom all these years. And that's also professionally what we learn for some folks on this call as well. So when I was choosing the starting question for these groups, a few people that were really brave would answer, and then it would be crickets. It was awkward, it was like pulling teeth. And one day, out of frustration, I just decided to let people write down their own questions. And then we voted on which one to start with. And it was incredible. It built trust and signaled to the group that they were empowered to make the experience their own. When people wrote down their own questions, there was more talking, more ideas, more conversations. Those questions led to more, and it was really awesome to watch. So I was feeling good, right? No more pressure on my shoulders, and participants were giving great feedback. They're saying things like, I wish I did this every day. How do I lead something like this? And my professors were wondering what I was doing, right? Because I was doing this without them there. And so once they found out, I taught other students, and then those students taught other students, and it became a certified program. And the students that I was leading actually trained freshman professor coordinators, and it really started to grow. So just this cool volunteer thing, but I was really loving what was happening. And studies were being done focused on critical thinking. And we were finding that our students were building skills not only for remembering, understanding, or evaluating, but up to the highest level skill of creating. They were creating new ideas in these groups. It was awesome. This is Bloom's taxonomy, by the way. It's an interesting thing to look at if you'd like to learn more. And then one day it happened. Is there a God? That's the question someone wrote, and then that's the question that we voted on. And so that got the most votes, and that was the starting question. Is there a God? And that was their choice. So we went with it. Is there a God? Right off the bat, person one, yes, there is, and Jesus died for our sins. Person two, people just made up God so that they could feel better and create rules. Person three, maybe it's in the middle, maybe something like God, and maybe the Bible was created by man. So it's not my question. Those were not my opinions. Everyone started sharing. There's lots of energy in the room and a huge diversity of opinions. I also want to make a quick note here. I could have chose a corporate story. I could have chose a business related question, but I don't think there's anything more telling about dialogue, trust, and risk and creativity than when it comes to something as powerful as religion and faith. So we have this question, is there a God? And as a facilitator, I'm listening to what's in the room, and I know how important it is to support everyone. We never had this difficult of a question before, but I knew I wanted to create a journey for people to go down. And I knew that to make that shift happen, I needed to make it about them, not about me. I knew that I wanted to help them see there's more common attributes that we have than differences, but it was hard, right? They're sharing all these things on this first question. And so I just thought if I take them on a journey, it would be helpful. So for me, it looked like this. This is their starting question. All that diversity, some energy, things are coming out. And so I wanted them to elaborate. So I asked, can you elaborate? This turned up the heat. People were starting to get pretty upset and their beliefs were offending one another. There was one really big football player in the room and he was red in the face and he was a giant guy and he definitely was not happy about what was going on. And there was another short academic guy who had a habit of talking down to people. Anyways, it wasn't a relaxed conversation. I was worried a fight was about to break out, but I didn't want them to stop because they were speaking their truth. And I believe it's better that that tension happen in a space that could be managed as opposed to it coming up outside of that moment. So I thought it would be good to give them and everyone time to move from their heart to their head. So I asked, what's the textbook definition of religion? People stopped, they calmed down, and they shared what they thought might be a good definition. The temperature lowered, and as people were talking, I got curious. I'd like to know where these ideas came from. I mean, they didn't wake up one day, believing in God or an atheist. It came from somewhere. So I just asked, and this is a question I really think everyone can have in their back pocket. And I think it's a gift that I want to give you as one of the gifts. Where does your belief come from is a great question to ask at any point in time. And person one, I chose my own beliefs. I'm my own person. Person two, well, my parents are Christian and I'm Christian, so I guess it comes from them. And then person one again, oh, I'm atheist and my parents are atheists, right? There was this interesting callback to the starting question and this new connection of how much their parents impacted their faith and their belief in God. It was a huge creative jump to do that when before they never even considered it. And it was a big turning point. I looked around and people were like, huh? Wait a minute, that's true for me too. I mean, they really dug in for 45 minutes and now they had this epiphany that while they think of faith in a specific way, it might not be all their own, right? That's a creative thought. That's a brand new thought. They're challenging those assumptions. And as different as they all were, that's actually something they had in common. So I watched as the whole dynamic shifted in the room and they started talking about how they were brought up, who they are now, and who they want to become. And as time started winding down, I was worried because a fight almost did break out and I wasn't sure how people would feel. And then everyone clapped. And no one had clapped before in these sessions. And when we stood up, they all came and shook my hand. And I was like, whoa, they thanked me, they shook my hand. These are my peers. I'm a student, right? We're university students. And I think some of them were probably forced to do this because of extra credit. So that's really when the epiphany question method was born. I've brought it into boardrooms, conflict resolution situations. I use it for debriefs. I use it for decision-making processes, and there's all sorts of ways you can use it. So this is how it works. We start with a question. I would recommend having some choice involved there. Let them choose. Listen, really listen, be neutral, do your best to hear what's in the room. Find a pattern. Maybe everyone loves barbecue. Maybe you see polarization. It could be anything. Whatever it is, take a step back and see what's unfolding. Then pick something that stands out for you. In the example I gave, it was the strong belief that everyone shared and my own curiosity on where those beliefs came from. And it's going to depend on who you are. It's going to be something that's you're drawn to. So go with it. Don't overthink it. And then you're going to ask the question and move the group on their journey. So, and then you keep repeating it. So listen, find a pattern, pick something, ask a question. A few tips for this method. It's tailored to what the audience says. So it's all about the people in the room. It's not about what you're thinking or about your opinion or anyone that might not be there. It's about them. It's about who's in the room. Next, questions will never be perfect. After 16 years, I've had the group say, no, I don't want to know that. We're going to ask something else. That's fine. That's great. That means they have enough buy-in and they're brave enough to actually take hold of the process and shape it. It's a mindset, a philosophy, or approach. It's not rigid. For those of you who are perfectionists, that I really mean it. It's not going to be, mind-blowing every time. Don't get caught up with that as the end goal. It's just a path. Take them on the path and the journey. And it's there to uncover assumptions. You might be thinking it's the participants' assumptions. It's not. It's also about your assumptions as a leader or as a facilitator. And finally, always keep an eye to shed light on the minority opinion. That's where the juiciness will come. That's where those diversity of opinions will come out, whatever that might look like for you. So this is the method. And my question for you is, how will you approach your next discussion? I know we have a short amount of time, so I want to make sure that I give everyone this gift. Anyone that is struggling or just interested in this more, if you join today, I just want to give you the chance. You can scan this QR code or you can follow this link. And I'm going to give the first 5 people the chance to grab a call with me, have 20 minutes to talk through anything that you're challenged with that you deem as a difficult dialogue that you might want to tackle. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to answer any quick questions at the end here that anyone might have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Hassan. I think that was a wonderful structure to have some of those difficult conversations. We do have time for questions, observations. Are there conversations that you could have used this with, or maybe you have something coming up that you'd like to start to model out while we've got the expert in the room here?
I'll ask a quick question if that's okay.
Of course, Milda.
I'm sort of curious. You obviously had the series of questions and so on. What do you do to get people into the room? Do you use a particular check-in process? Because I can really see and use dialogue and dialogic questions in a bunch of the work that I do, but I might have missed because my husband was asking me questions via WhatsApp, the bit where you talked around getting people into the room so that they're ready for that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think that's a hard one to tackle, but I think for sure this isn't a conversation where they should be surprised about it. They should come in, they should be invited in a certain way. Fast forward into norms and rules and things like that. Place setting, I think it's really important. So I shift it. If I do it in Thailand, if I do it for a group of executives in Thailand, I'm going to talk about language use even and part of my norms. If I do it in the US and I know it's a particularly charged situation, I did work in Oklahoma City with a bunch of different groups during the George Floyd murder and things that happened after that with police and fire and city officials. So there's just really different things, but setting the stage and getting everyone to agree at the very beginning is important. And I'd be happy to, it's an extensive answer, but I'd be happy to talk more about it with you. Good question. Yeah, I saw Teresa and Anna Maria. I don't know if, yeah.
Yeah, I see Anna Maria has her hand up.
Thank you, Hassan. I'm wondering, are you using the method mainly for exploratory diverging sessions? And if you were like, are you closing it somehow? And what's your way to bring people? Are you usually landing on a conclusion? Are you landing on we agree to disagree? Like how does this end?
Absolutely. I would say, so in communities, I would say this is a weekly community of practice thing where communities get to learn and empathize, develop bonds with each other, right? So it's an ongoing process. When I use this for, particular groups, or if I'm brought in to help with planning of sorts or things like that, I use this to also connect the group. It's exploratory, right? It's definitely exploratory. And a lot of times what I do is I'll wait until there's like a lot of bubbling, a lot of energy or tension or however it might be. And then what I'll do is I'll have everyone break individually, do a 1, 2, 4 all type thing where individually they might think of a solution, they'll pair up, and then they'll present in pairs. maybe people that are on opposite side of the spectrum in order to present their solution to the group. So I know that we have other speakers coming up, so I want to make sure that we have time for all that, and happy to connect with anyone, really interested to help and support anyone that is interested. Thanks all.
Thank you, Hassan. I don't know if you'll be sticking around or not, but again, here in the chat, if you want to chat with Hassan, also connect through the platform, reach out with sharing your contact information.